Hello, PyConline 2021 education track. We are here with Renee Noble for our very first talk of the day. Get cooking with Kookaberry. And I'm going to say this a lot of times today, but I'm really excited. Not just because I know Renee and that this talk is going to be fantastic, but because I'm keen. I want to get more hardware. I want you to tell me why this is fantastic, and I'm sure you will. Also, it's just a really cute graphic. I don't know. Let's start. So let me first introduce Renee. Renee is a software engineer, tech educator, and community and team cultivator. Having spent the last 6 years growing the girls' programming network from a local delight to a huge nation-spanning operation, which I happen to hold very dear to my heart. Massive props, Renee. Renee founded her own business, Connected Code. Renee's aim is to bring project-based tech education and opportunities and materials to schools and organizations and community groups around Australia through school incursions, clubs, holiday programs, teacher PD sessions, and more. Renee, do you do personal interventions, perhaps? Just asking. Renee's also thoroughly enjoying being a Cambridge computer science teacher at Presbyterian Ladies College, as well as consulting as a speaker in the tech, education, diversity, and project management spaces. What I'm hearing is, Renee, that you do way too much. You excel at it all, and we are ridiculously happy to have you here for this fantastic talk.
Excited to be here, Nikki. I'm really excited to tell you all about my journey today on how I got cooking with Kookaberry, my journey from knowing very little about the Kookaberry to, discovering it, then being like, maybe it's not all I thought it was going to be, and then ultimately being a complete convert who talks about it all the time to people. I'm like, yeah, you got to get on this Kookaberry. So here is how my journey went. You might remember me from previous years, but you'll notice that I'm, not wearing my, green outfit with my green slides. I'm, of course, still involved with the Girls Programming Network, but I have started my own business, as Nikki said, Connected Code, and wanting to connect coding with context, community, and curriculum. I love all the stuff I've been talking about at PyCon for the past few years, and the kids love it. I've had so much support from the community and especially from the PyCon education community. So I thought, actually, we need to have this kind of stuff available more of the time, not just, at our quarterly GPN workshops, but also, throughout the year, and people all over Australia need to be able to access. And we really want to have this cool project-based learning where you understand how coding can impact your life and your family and your friends, accessible to everybody. So I'm taking what I've been doing and telling you about for the past 3 years at PyCon and trying to deliver it to everybody through school incursions or code clubs or community groups or teacher PD. So that's how I've started out on this journey, and it's actually the start of my journey with the Kookaberry as well. So I, started out and I really wanted to improve access to education, coding, generally as well, and talking to other groups and people was definitely part of the plan. And a friend of mine, Jim Musserad, who's very popular in the Python education space from the MicroPython Foundation, came to me and said, hey, I've got some mates at the AusSTEM Foundation and they've got this new thing called the Kookaberry. And Jim had mentioned a bit about the Kookaberry to me before, and what I understood was it's a microbit on steroids. And I'm a fan of microbits. I've been using them for a while, love to use them at GPN, and they feel like make really cool projects. So I went, okay, I'd really love to get involved with whatever I can help with the Kookaberry and give it a go. I love to try a new piece of tech. So I said, yeah, I'd be happy to give them a hand, give them some opinions on how this will actually, roll out in the classroom, what, might be the clinches, what can they offer, what kind of projects might be great. I'd love to help out however I can. So connect me up. So this is where I start out my journey at Anticipationville, I'm going to call it, on my journey to full convert mountain of the Kookaberry life. So Jim connects me up with Julian at the AusSTEM Foundation, and he sends me through my first Kookaberry kit. So it's got a couple of Kookaberries, some batteries, and some of these cute 3D printed stands, as well as some peripherals that are really great to get you started. Things you might want: a speaker, a buzzer, a potentiometer, a light sensor, motion sensor, temperature probe. These are just a few of the many, many peripherals that they have going, I've learnt now. So I wanted to get familiar with the Kookaberry. So here's my explanation of this lovely anatomy drawing that the Austin Foundation is providing. We've got our OLED screen. It's fantastic. Big screen as opposed to your 5x5 microbit display. We've got 3 LEDs down just under the screen. We've got 4 of these push buttons, twice as many as the microbit, so I'm getting pretty hyped at this point. And then we flip it over and we've got all of these ports. So these are where our peripherals plug in, which is super handy. So you can plug straight into our speaker. At the time I got this, I don't have a microbit version 2, so I don't have any onboard speakers. So this was pretty exciting. And you can plug in any sort of things with the 3 or 4 pin adapters. And then under the hood, we've got our compass, magnetometer, and radio. The Kookaberry also has its very own software. We've got Kookablockly here on the left, so you can get your primary kids coding and get them ready for Python. And on the right, we've got our Kooka IDE. So we've got coding in Python, and we've got this fantastic serial on the left, which I'll tell you a little bit more about shortly. So I went, okay, I got to get started with this. So I started by looking at some of the pre-installed apps. So here on the left, I'm trying out the LED and this musical creation. Let's just go back a little bit. It has skipped over my sound. So we've got our musical creation using the accelerometer and a plugged-in speaker. Yes, one of the great things about the Kookaberry is that you can store a bunch of files on it. So you can store up your files, you can give it to the students to give them a try, and then you can also take that out, maybe going outside, so you have all this stuff stored up and you didn't have to be connected to a computer to flash your programs onto it. I also then went and coded a few of my own things. Hello World, a classic. Some use of the potentiometer, the buttons, you got to get amongst the buttons and the LEDs. And also we have what I call Hello Serial coming up, which is, you can just print straight to the serial and it's just there. You don't have to open any extra menus or anything to find it. Super good for debugging, as well as the screen being super good for debugging, because you have that way to actually see what's in your variables, rather than having to do some sort of ad hoc weird debugging to work out why on earth is my microbit maybe not having this problem, or watching those errors scroll across the tiny 5x5 display. So this is looking pretty good at this point. So my first thoughts on the Kookaberry were, the LCD is like that screen. It's great. I love it. It just makes you able to communicate so much more stuff than you could with the microbit. 4 buttons, I love it, amazing. I never have enough buttons on the microbit, so that's fantastic. The speaker, it just plugs in, terrific. That's what I've been wanting all this time. It's super fun to do those alligator clip connections to your headphones, but it's using up one of your ports, on your microbit, and you sometimes end up with alligator clip mayhem if you're trying to do several bits connected to your connection point at the bottom. Got these pre-coded apps, which are great if you want to give kids a go at like inputs and outputs on your Kookaberry. Also great for your non-tech STEM activities. So if you want to get kids doing some data science, maybe you're in maths class, you want to do some different, graphing and calculations, you can use the Kookaberry for a bunch of different things, not just coding. And the Austin Foundation is providing a bunch of different apps to use the things, even if you're not a coder yourself, or a great starting point for seeing where you might want to go with your creations. Saving the multiple apps, also great. You could have your pre-coded apps. You could provide apps to your students, or you could get students to create a bunch of apps and maybe head out into the bush and take a few measurements of different things for pH or humidity, etc. So that's all fantastic, and I'm loving that. But there is no allocated clip connection pads, which was like, I shouldn't be this disappointed about this, but I am. And the reason is because, like, I thought that Kookaberry is a better microbit, so I should be able to make all my microbit projects, but better, surely. But how would I bop? Bop it is a classic GPN activity where we connect up our pads at the bottom to our microbit. And I was like, but I really want to make bop it and all the other kind of creative activities we have that rely on making weird things out of foil and cardboard and blue tack and connecting them up, that I've been like constrained my thinking to that for a while. So I went, well, despite all the great features, I'm not completely sold. Because I was at a loss for what to build because of those constraints that it had on my mind all that time. I hadn't really delved out of there, and I was like, well, I was more stuck on all the things I couldn't make than the things that I could make. So here I hit my conflicting thoughts cliffs. I hadn't made my Kookaberries obsolete, my microbits obsolete with the Kookaberry, so I'd still want to have both. So I was like, oh, if I had to choose, what would I do? So many of my projects depend on these pads, but, you know, I see there's so many benefits of the Kookaberry. So the AusSTEM team then asked me to come up with some ideas that they might be able to make with the Kookaberries. They wanted to get out and do some outreach in some regional areas. And I thought, okay, this is really in line with what I want to do in terms of making context-related coding projects. So I'm going to give this a go and give it a play. And I started thinking of the Kookaberry from a new perspective, because you could really make these learning journeys from research to making something, calibrating it, and then collecting data, and then displaying that data and communicating it. It's like, okay, this is really on brand with what I want to do. It's about getting it out there and making it relevant to each different group of people. So, okay, this is pretty cool. You know, it's no bop it, but I think this has actually got something. It's real life stuff. So that's something I really want to be involved with. And I kept thinking, it's like, okay, what else could I be making? And I often went back to like what I'd seen on the microbit and what I could do with the microbit. I was kind of caught between these mindsets of going with what I know and exploring all these new possibilities that were a bit unfamiliar, and I didn't really know which way to go with them. So it's easy to get drawn back into what you're familiar with. But as I asked about more peripherals and tried them out, they spawned more and more and more ideas. And I was realizing that the ease of creating highly practical tools with the Kookaberry that's the key. So then I was like, if I wanted to make something that was this real with the microbit, like you could possibly do it with the breakout boards, but you know, there's not that many ports on them. So you might be going down like to breadboard city, and you don't necessarily want to be doing that if that's not really what you're trying to cover in your curriculum. It does take time, and there are a lot of, you know, things that can go awry if we're doing that. So yeah, this was a great way to get making real projects. No wiring problems, drivers included, it all just fits and worked. And could be used in all different kinds of contexts to make real solutions. So I was thinking about health and sports. There's peripherals for heart rate monitors. You could use the accelerometer to make a step counter. There's so many different environmental sensors for moisture, temperature, humidity, and many more. And you could just start solving problems around your own house. Maybe you need a light sensor to tell you that your plants aren't getting enough light, or you need motion detectors to see if your dog's getting out. There's a lot of things that you could do. I really started to change my tune when a friend asked me to come along to the Conservatorium of Music at the University of Sydney to show some music teachers, soon-to-be music teachers in their teaching cohort, how to integrate technology into music learning in their classroom. And music technology wasn't something I'd spent a lot of time on before. I hadn't heard much about it with microbit, so I had to get to thinking about what you could possibly do. I was quick to come up with a few ideas that we quick to code in Cookablockly, because I wasn't going to chuck our tech newbie music teachers in the deep end with teaching them Python in an hour. And I certainly wasn't going to get out the breadboards in that hour to try and get them making something. So I gave them some things that they could make in Cookablockly just by plugging in these peripherals. So I had a few different ideas, some easy ones without, plugging much in at all, metronomes, BPM counters, which are great, but also some ways to make some musical instruments. So we had this pitch bend. And we also have this, I'm going to call it my moisture theremin, using a moisture sensor to create music. And some of the students, even with a little bit of programming experience, were able to create their own instruments. Like that accelerometer based musical instrument there. But my real piece de resistance was this, my Play-Doh xylophone. Everybody really got on board with this one. So from my squishy circuit days, I knew that Play-Doh was a good conductor, but also it would make a variable resistor, so it's not that conductive. And the Kookaberry really got me thinking about circuits and voltage, rather than just creating buttons like with the Bop It, where it's an open or closed circuit. It's really, a lot of these measurements, a lot of the devices, the potentiometer and all the probes really give you information in terms of voltage. So that was really good to change my thinking about what we could be teaching kids and actually giving them more of an education on how the technology was working and how data is transmitted and communicated and how circuits work, really. So I used some of the components probably in an unintended way to allow me to hook up my Play-Doh, but it was a big hit amongst the students and also the guys at the OzSTEM Foundation. So at this point I'm going, the Kookaberry is not a microbit. There's more ideas to be discovered. I just have to play around a little bit. So I found myself here in my slow epiphany valley, figuring out what I might be able to do and seeing this technology from another new perspective for what it really is. So having learned all this, I went, okay, I need to get this in the classroom to see actually how it plays out. And as Nikki mentioned, I'm lucky enough to be working at PLC Sydney as a Cambridge computer science teacher for the Year 9 class. And I went, okay, well, we've got to teach inputs, outputs, coding and algorithms for this curriculum. The Kookaberry seems great. We'd already started on Python earlier in the year with a tic-tac-toe game. So I was like, let's give the Kookaberries a go. And I got the girls to make a whistling countdown timer. So we started off with some basics about timing and embedded systems and worked our way up to more accurate timers and then adding some fun sound effects. So we ended up getting this project. The girls picked it up super fast. It was amazing to see. They have no embedded experience before, and they loved the finished product and really understood how it worked. And they especially loved all playing their countdown timers at the same time to get a very loud whistling noise. So given how fast the girls had picked it up, I went, this would be a great opportunity to do some creative coding activities with the Kookaberry. So for their first assignment, I challenged them to make an app for the Kookaberry that helps with learning a specific area. And I won't spoil it now. My 4 girls who did this project are actually in the student showcase this afternoon with some awesome projects, so you should go along and watch that for sure. But I can say that they've made some very creative things using different ways the Kookaberries can work with different components to make unique and actually useful projects that actually solve real problems that they had when they were learning. So, having seen it in the classroom, I was like, you know what? This Kookaberry is more than just a toy. I'm not really about toyified tech, is what I call it. These, the Spheros and Lego Robotics, they all have their place in the classroom for getting kids excited about technology and giving them a place to start with something tangible that they can interact with. But they also all have their limitations of what they can do and how real they can feel, because they are just, a ball that rolls around or things like that. And you can't necessarily use it in your everyday life. But the Kookaberry apps really seemed like a great prototype for something that is a real thing. You've got real interactions with the UI from the screen, and you can plug in all sorts of peripherals that you would find as components of a real embedded system if you were that you might buy from the shop. So it seemed like a really good real prototype for students to be making in the classroom with only a couple of weeks of embedded systems experience and less than 7 months of Python experience. So next to this, the microbit was actually kind of starting to look like a toy to me. It was really great for making games like Bop It or toy programs and maybe even toy little projects that you could use around the house. But without all these ports in the back, you're going to need at the very least a breakout board, or you might even need to get the breadboards out to make something that starts to feel real. So I was really warming up to these Kookaberries at this point. So at this point, my take on the Kookaberries was they're really easy to get started with. You can play with these pre-installed apps, which are really useful for seeing how they work and seeing how you plug things in without having to get coding first. You didn't need any embedded experience to start coding, and debugging was way easier than I'd found with the microbits, where you end up with that forever scrolling error message across that 5x5 display. Just being able to print something out or seeing in the serial what the error was, or printing out your variables to the screen was really easy for the girls to comprehend and not make it seem scary and not seem like their project was broken. There's all the same things we'd learnt with Python before that they could use in this to do their debugging. It was great to see how real the projects felt to them, and we didn't even need much peripherals to get that happening. You could use none. You could just, be pressing buttons and using the screen, or you could be, plugging in a speaker or maybe a light, and that's it. And it really is plug and play. You can just get started with plugging something in. And it was really ready to grow with. You can make real solutions to problems you've seen that people know how to interact with. You don't need to be like, well, in the microbit, when you see the star, then you need to shake it or you need to press the A button. You don't need to have those. You can just explain it on the screen. You can combine all your peripherals in different creative ways. You have so many options. And you can even combine your favorite non-Kookaberry components, like this fun rainbow light. There's peripherals for adding, connecting clips to whatever items you have. And you can even connect up your little bits kits, which I was excited to hear about. And if you do run out of ports in the back, I've just learned about these breakout boards, which are really fantastic. They have so many ports, so I'm excited to try some bigger projects with them. So at this point, I was like, the Kookaberry offers low barriers to meaningful, real projects. That's it. And high capacity for creative, real-world applications. So people can get started and then just keep on going. So here I am, full convert, and I keep telling people about it. I've arrived at the destination, or is it just the beginning? Because I certainly have some more plans for the Kookaberries. So from my musical endeavours at the Conservatorium of Music, I've decided to make a full course, both in Blockly and in Python, for creating fun musical instruments, taking kids from everything from just pressing one of the onboard buttons to make a sound, to making full-on musical instruments like these paper pianos and toilet paper roll clarinets. I also have some exciting incursions planned for next year using the Kookaberries, using them to build escape rooms, using various peripherals to make different puzzles for other teams to solve, and using them for scavenger hunts and detective mysteries, actually collecting data, graphing data to see what, who the cookie thief might have been, or to find clues to get you to the next location. And finally, I'm still bopping with some learning. I figured out how I could keep my bopping life still happening after my endeavors with the Play-Doh xylophone. And the Play-Doh xylophone even showed the Kookaberry team the kind of things that I want to be making with these in the classroom. And they in fact made me this new component here, so I don't have to keep shoving sewing needles and resistors in to pull up or pull down my 3-pin connector. So yeah, the Kookaberry team is very open to feedback from teachers and what they want and what they need to get making projects that they love in the classroom. And there's so many peripherals out there that you can get using. And of course, I'm going to keep on cooking. I'm loving working with the Old STEM Foundation, giving them feedback on how things go in the classroom, whether it's their software, their materials, and helping them with their documentation and features for the Kookaberries, just like on that last slide. If you want to get in touch with the AusSTEM Foundation, do get on their website. There will be more mainstream with the Kookaberries shortly, but you can just get in contact with them via email if you are very excited about the Kookaberries right now. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope to get some awesome questions from you. Feel free to get in contact with me or my Kookaberry obsessed cats anytime.
I should unmute my microphone. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Renee. That was great. We have a bunch of questions that are hiding here over on my other monitor as I look awkwardly to my right. Okay, so the most upvoted question is, I think, the question that we spoke about even before the start of this talk. These look great. Where can I buy some? It seems like they might be only available directly to schools at the moment.
Yes, I think that at the moment that is the case, and Julian is working directly with schools to get out a bunch of kits. There's only about 500 of these out in the world so far at a variety of schools and institutions. So if you're keen, get in contact. I'm sure they're always looking for people to, test them out, and they will be going mainstream soon. I hear they're getting a new website that will tell you all about the features and more pre-made apps and more components soon.
Excellent. I'm excited because, I think that really resonated with a lot of the audience, and there's definitely a sense that we all need more microcontrollers in addition to the ones that we just generally have lying around on our desks already. Now, I had a self-interested question. Do we have more examples of what students have made with the Kookaberries? And I think we're going to hear more of that this afternoon.
Yeah, we've got 7 projects from my girls coming up this afternoon. They're very, very fun.
Fantastic. What is the networking like? Was a question. One of the things that this person adores about the microbits is how easy writing networking code is. Do you have any experience with that?
I've done only a little bit of the radio things. In Cookablockly at the moment, you can't set different channels, but they are working on that, so you are able to have more than the one channel in your classroom. But so far, super easy if you're, for me alone in my house with 2 Kookaberries, very easy to, set it up, send a message, receive it, too easy.
Excellent. Yeah, that is so much fun to do in a classroom. So that's good to hear. Another question what's the documentation like for Kookaberries? Is there a bank of learning resources or tutorials for teachers?
That's actually what I'm working with the AusSTEM Foundation to make sure there are good resources. So that's kind of why they're not fully rolled out yet. They're just in trial phases, but they are working with me and with other people to make sure there's going to be awesome getting started guides, awesome project guides, and awesome slides to use in your classroom and mini projects to do along the way.
Fantastic. That will make it, that'll be really valuable. We've got running out of time, but a few more questions. Are they similar in price to the microbit? Any idea on that?
So at the moment, I know they're not like as mass produced as the microbit. They're all Aussie made, which is really great. The microbit's about $20 to $30. Of these, I know the only thing I know is you get the Kookaberry, you get a battery, and you get a little stand for $70. So that's including the battery. So I'm not sure about batteryless and as well as the cables. So I'm not sure in the exact differential, but the batteries are really useful as well. So
batteries are pretty cool. Possibly a related question. Will they be available outside of Australia?
I have to assume so, but I'm not 100% sure, but I can't see why not. The goal is to put a Kookaberry in the hands of every year 5 child, so that might be their first port of call, but I'm sure they wouldn't, they want to help people learn. And they do a bunch of work with the UK, so I have to assume so, yes.
We are at time, but there are 2 more questions, so I'm going to be mean and just keep going. Any chance the hardware designs might be released as open source hardware?
I'm not sure. That's definitely not my domain. I'm not from the AusSTEM Foundation. I'm not from the Kookaberry team. I just am a really big fan of these Kookaberries, and I'm doing a little work to help them out because I love to make sure there's great resources. So ask them that.
And there's one more. And there's one more question, but I'm going to save it for the hallway track after. The question is, does the toilet paper clarinet actually have a breath sensor, or is it just a fun shape? We can talk about toilet paper and clarinet in the hallway track. So would you please all join us there right now and then come back for our next speaker, because it's going to be a great one. Shrey is going to talk about Python type hints and how they can supercharge CS education. And I will see you there. Thank you so much, Renee. That was fantastic.
Thank you for having me. I'll pop into the hallway track in a few minutes once I click over to there. Thanks, everybody.